When we think about death in European history, our minds immediately go to wars. We picture epic battles, marching armies, and famous generals. But what if I told you the greatest killers in Europe weren't soldiers? They were silent plagues, diseases that spread without armies, without borders, and without mercy, killing far more people than the most famous wars ever did. Medieval and early modern Europe was a continent almost constantly at war. The 100 Years' War, the 30 Years' War. The list goes on. Yet, even during the bloodiest conflicts, most Europeans didn't die on the battlefield. They died in their homes, from sicknesses they couldn't understand, fighting enemies they couldn't even see. While war killed thousands, disease killed millions. The Black Death is the most famous plague in history, and for good reason. But it wasn't a one-time event. After its first devastating wave in the 14th century, the plague returned again and again, haunting Europe for generations. Imagine living in a city that lost half its population, not Hustense, but multiple times in a single century. People were terrified. They believed it was a punishment from God, having no concept of bacteria, rats, or the fleas that carried the pestilence. Fear became a part of daily life. Then there was smallpox, the forgotten executioner. It killed silently, but constantly. Unlike the plague, which came in terrifying waves, smallpox never really left. It was an ever-present threat, attacking children with particular cruelty. In some parts of Europe, as many as 1 in 3 children died from it before reaching adulthood. Those who survived were often left blinded or permanently scarred. For centuries, it was just a tragic, accepted part of European life. Another deadly foe was typhus, often called the disease of poverty and war. It thrived in filth and spread through lice. Wherever you found crowded cities, prisons, or refugee camps, you found typhus. It followed armies like a shadow. During many wars, more soldiers died from typhus than from enemy weapons, and civilians, caught in the crossfire, suffered even more. Entire towns were wiped out after armies passed through, not by fighting, but by the disease they left in their wake. And we can't forget tuberculosis. This one didn't cause the same immediate panic as the plague. It was a slow killer. People called it consumption because its victims seemed to just waste away. It could last for years, forcing families to watch their loved ones grow weaker day by day. By the 19th century, this lingering disease was killing more Europeans than any single war. So, why were these plagues so incredibly deadly? The simple answer is ignorance. Europe had no understanding of germs. The best medical minds of the day relied on things like bloodletting and superstition. Cities were incredibly overcrowded and unsanitary. Waste was just thrown into the streets, and clean water was a luxury few could afford. In these conditions, disease spread much faster than knowledge ever could. There's a reason we remember wars and forget plagues. Wars have heroes. They have glory. There are no medals for surviving a disease, and no monuments are built for the millions who died from sickness. But these silent killers shaped Europe more profoundly than any battle. They forced change. In the long run, the immense loss of life led cities to improve sanitation. Hospitals began to get more organized. Slowly, very slowly, medical science began to replace superstition. The massive population loss even weakened the old feudal systems, making labor more valuable and helping to reshape social structures. In many ways, modern Europe was built on the ashes left by these diseases. Wars made noise. They were loud, dramatic, and recorded in heroic tales. Plagues worked in silence, and in that silence, millions and millions died. If we only study the wars, we get a completely skewed picture of the past. European history wasn't just shaped by soldiers and kings, but by invisible enemies that no army could ever hope to defeat. Thanks for watching. If you found this look into the hidden side of history interesting, don't forget to like this video and subscribe for more.